May 1942, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. The morning sun broke over the Maryland horizon, painting the Aberdeen Proving Ground in hues of gold and shadow. Dust swirled across the testing range, stirred by a warm breeze that carried the scent of oil and burnt powder. Lieutenant Edward Uhl, 24, stood rigid, a 5-foot steel tube balanced against his shoulder. The contraption was a Frankenstein's monster of salvaged parts. A discarded pipe from Indian Head's scrap pile, a wooden rifle stock bolted haphazardly, and crude sights bent from a wire coat hanger just hours earlier. Inside rested a finned rocket tipped with an M10 shaped charge grenade, capable of burning through 4 inches of hardened steel, enough to stop any Panzer in Europe. Uhl's pulse raced. This could change warfare or blow up in his face. Beside him, Major Leslie Skinner, 42, clutched a clipboard, his weathered face set as he peered through field glasses at a Mark V tank rumbling 300 yards downrange. Skinner, a career Army man, had been chasing rockets since his teenage years when a 1915 experiment at Fort Strong, Massachusetts, set a hospital roof ablaze, earning a tongue lashing from his Army surgeon father. That boyhood spark of rebellion had led here, to a weapon that could arm infantrymen against the mechanized terror of German armor. His recent promotion to major reflected his relentless work on this project, a gamble to solve an impossible problem. Behind them stood a skeptical cadre of generals, including Brigadier General Gladion Marcus Barnes, Chief of Army Ordnance Research and Development. Barnes, his uniform crisp despite the heat, had dismissed Skinner's toy rocket as a distraction. American infantry faced a crisis. German Panzers had rolled through Poland, France, and Russia, while U.S. soldiers relied on suicidal tactics, running up to tanks with magnetic mines, a death sentence in modern warfare. The generals expected failure. They'd seen too many anti-tank schemes flop. But as Uhl steadied the tube, history hung in the balance. The tank's engine growled, its treads kicking up dirt. Uhl's hands trembled, the trigger, a scavenged dry-cell battery contraption, feeling flimsy under his grip. He squeezed. A sharp whoosh split the air, the rocket leaping from the tube. Seconds later, a resounding clang echoed as it struck the tank's hull. A hit. Skinner fired next, his rocket slamming home. Another hit. The generals stirred, murmurs rippling through their ranks. Skinner fired again and again. Each shot connected, the crude coat hanger sights defying their makeshift origins. Barnes stepped forward, his weathered face betraying fascination. "Let me try it," he said, more order than request. Skinner handed over the launcher, explaining the simple mechanics: aim, track, squeeze. Barnes, a 30-year veteran of weapons tests, shouldered the tube, squinted through the wire sights, and fired. Direct hit. His rare smile broke through. "It sure looks like Bob Burns's bazooka," he quipped, invoking the comedian's comical tube instrument. Laughter erupted, but Barnes's report was deadly serious. That day, he ordered 5,000 launchers for immediate production, not testing, combat. The bazooka was born, a scrapyard miracle that would redefine infantry warfare. The genesis of a game changer. The bazooka story begins not in 1942, but in the fading echoes of World War I. Robert Goddard, a visionary American physicist, had developed rocket-powered weapons in 1918, portable devices to blast fortifications. His prototypes, tested in muddy trenches, showed promise. But the armistice of November 1918 killed interest. Why fund experimental rockets when peace reigned? His work was shelved, gathering dust in War Department archives for 2 decades. By 1940, the world was ablaze again. German Panzers, PZKFW-3s and 4s, crushed Poland in weeks, then France in months, their 50mm guns and 30 to 50mm armor unstoppable. American infantry, still training with World War I tactics, had nothing to counter them. Magnetic mines required soldiers to sprint within yards of tanks, a tactic with a 90% mortality rate. At Indian Head Rocket Laboratory in Maryland, Captain Leslie Skinner, now 42, revisited Goddard's files. His teenage experiments, culminating in that hospital roof fire,
had taught him rockets could deliver explosive payloads with minimal recoil. The science was sound, the challenge was a warhead to pierce modern armor.
The shaped charge principle, discovered by Charles Monroe in the 1880s, was the answer. A hollow cavity in an explosive focused its force into a molten jet, capable of burning through steel. By 1941, Army Ordnance refined this into the M10 grenade, a 3.5-pound warhead that could penetrate 4 inches of armor, like a blowtorch through butter. But no soldier could throw it far enough to survive the blast or the tank's machine guns. Mounting it on a rifle risked backblast injuries. Skinner, sketching in December 1940, envisioned a tube-launched rocket. His superiors scoffed. No warhead existed. When the M10 arrived in 1942, the impossible became improbable. Skinner assigned the launcher to Lieutenant Edward All, a 24-year-old Lehigh graduate who joined his unit in June 1941. All, with his sharp engineering mind and 5 Phi Beta Kappa keys, was undaunted. Weeks of trials followed. Shielding operators from rocket exhaust, stabilizing finned projectiles, crafting sights for 300-yard accuracy. Failures piled up, rockets veered, tubes warped, exhaust scorched test rigs. Ull's breakthrough came by chance, walking past Indian Head's scrap pile. A 5-foot 60-millimeter diameter steel tube caught his eye, perfectly sized for the M10. He hefted it, imagining a launcher that vented exhaust rearward, protecting the gunner. In a workshop reeking of solder and sawdust, All built a prototype: scrap tube, wooden stock from spare rifle parts, and a trigger cobbled from dry cell batteries. Alone by the Potomac River, far from skeptical eyes, he loaded a dummy rocket, aimed across the water, and fired. The whoosh was clean, the rocket splashing 300 feet away. No recoil, no face-searing flame, the propellant burned fully inside the tube. A soldier could fire this from the shoulder. Ull's heart soared, he'd cracked it. He showed Skinner the next morning. They refined it, a sturdier trigger, electrical firing from scavenged parts, basic grips. Dummy rockets tested flawlessly, flying straight and venting safely. The stage was set for Aberdeen. The Aberdeen Triumph. May 1942's demonstration was a gamble. Aberdeen's range, scarred from years of weapons tests, buzzed with activity. Spigot mortars, crew-served anti-tank weapons, fired first. 5 models launched shaped charge rounds at the moving Mark V. None hit. Generals, sweating in dress uniforms, exchanged glances. Anti-tank tech was a graveyard of good intentions. Skinner and All stepped up, their launcher looking like a child's science project. The coat hanger sights, bent with a broken nail at dawn, screamed improvisation. Skinner shouldered the tube, tracking the tank's dust trail. He fired. Whoosh, clang. A hit. All fired next, then Skinner again. 4 shots, 4 hits. The generals leaned forward, cigars forgotten. Barnes, his gray eyes narrowing, demanded a turn. Skinner coached him. Aim through the wire, track the tank, squeeze. Barnes fired, a perfect strike. His quip about Bob Burns' bazooka broke the tension, but his report was a thunderbolt. 5,000 launchers, immediate production. Days later at Camp Sims, D.C., General George C. Marshall watched a demo before Allied observers, British, Russian, French. The bazooka hit every target. Marshall issued verbal orders: 5,000 launchers, 25,000 anti-tank rockets, and 5,000 practice rounds. General Electric's Bridgeport, Connecticut plant took the contract on May 20, 1942, with a 30-day deadline. Engineers worked around the clock, reverse engineering the prototype. The design was simple: steel tube, wooden stock, battery ignition. No exotic materials, just metalwork and woodworking at scale. They delivered on June 19th with 89 minutes to spare. The launcher, rocket, 2.36 inches anti-tank M1, forever the bazooka, was born. But its M6 rocket would nearly doom it. The bitter taste of failure. The M6 rocket was a disaster. Primers misfired, fins bent in transit, propellant burned erratically, too fast in heat, risking tube rupture, too slow in cold, scorching gunners. Warheads failed to detonate or exploded prematurely. The electrical ignition corroded in humidity. In Operation Torch, November 8, 1942, 100,000 Allied troops hit North Africa's beaches. Bazookas arrived with the 1st and 34th Infantry Divisions, but no training accompanied them. Soldiers pried open crates on ships, staring at tubes and rockets with no manuals, no practice rounds, just vague promises of tank-killing power. In Tunisia's Kasserine Pass, February 1943, the 168th Infantry Regiment faced Panzer IVs. Bazookas misfired, rockets bounced off armor or missed entirely. A visiting general found no soldier who'd stopped a tank. By May 1943, deployment halted, the program facing cancellation. Skinner and all, back at Aberdeen, worked feverishly. The M6A1 rocket emerged. Wire unspooling contacts replaced weak nose rings, propellant sticks shortened, fuses improved. The M1A1 launcher shed the forward grip, added a face guard, conical muzzle deflector, and strap. Weight down to 12.75 pounds. Training manuals taught two-man teams, gunner to aim, loader to prep rockets. By July 1943, the revamped bazooka was ready for Operation Husky.
Redemption in Sicily. July 10, 1943, 180,000 Allied troops stormed Sicily's beaches, backed by aircraft and ships. The 82nd Airborne's paratroopers, scattered by high winds, landed across 50 miles of countryside. Colonel James Gavin, commanding the 505th Parachute Infantry, had trained his men on the M1A1. At Biaza Ridge, July 11th, they faced the Hermann Göring Division's Tiger I Kanks, 60-ton monsters with 100mm frontal armor. Bazooka rounds bounced off Tiger's fronts, but seasoned NCOs targeted sides, rears, and tracks. Gavin wrote in American Heritage, "The bazooka was our only weapon to engage armor on reasonable terms. Naval gunfire and Shermans won the day, but bazookas claimed 4 Panzer IVs and 1 Tiger via a fluke hit through the driver's vision slot." In Italy's mountains, bazookas shone against fortifications. At Monte Cassino, 1944, they blasted bunkers and machine gun nests, their 3.54-inch penetration demolishing concrete. The M9, introduced October 1943, broke down for airborne ops, its Magnavox magneto ignition eliminating battery failures. Polaroid T90 sights boosted accuracy to 300 yards, rate of fire hitting 10 rounds per minute. The M6A3 rocket, with a hemispherical nose and circular fins, ensured reliable penetration across temperatures. In the Pacific, bazookas targeted Japanese bunkers on Iwo Jima and Okinawa. White phosphorus rockets flushed caves, their toxic smoke forcing defenders out. Humidity corroded M1 components, but the M9's magneto held up. By 1945, bazookas were standard, soldiers praising their versatility. Legends of the bazooka. Heroic tales defined the bazooka's legacy. Lieutenant Colonel Charles, Bazooka Charlie Carpenter, a 31-year-old former history teacher, mounted 6 M1A1s on his L4 Grasshopper, Rosie the Rocketeer. Flying solo to save weight, he wired a cockpit control panel for salvo firing. On September 20, 1944 at Arac-Court, France, he dove from 100 meters, hitting 4 tanks and an armored car in 3 sorties, firing 16 rockets. Patton awarded him the Silver Star, Stars and Stripes quoting him, "Word's getting around to watch for Cubs with bazookas." Carpenter downed 6 tanks total, including 2 Tigers, targeting thin 40mm turret top armor. Private First Class Francis Curry, 19 years old, earned the Medal of Honor on December 21, 1944, at Malmedy, Belgium. When German tanks overran his position, Curry grabbed a bazooka, braved fire to fetch rockets, and hit a Panzer's turret chassis joint, disabling it. He lived until 2019, recalling, "It was a miracle shot." Lieutenant Waverly Ray, 82nd Airborne, died in Normandy, June 1944, closing on a German strongpoint with a bazooka to suppress machine guns. During the Battle of the Bulge, December 1944,
Bazookas knocked out 20-plus armored vehicles at Krinkelt-Rockerath. In Alsace, January 1945, a bazooka or M36 destroyer hit a Jag Tiger's 80mm side armor, detonating its ammo, the first Jag Tiger lost. In Korea, the M1A1 failed against T-34s, prompting the M20 Super Bazooka, 3.5-inch, 11-inch penetration. On July 20, 1950 at Taejon, it destroyed 8 T-34s in one day, General William Dean earning the Medal of Honor for a point-blank shot. The enemy's fear. German intelligence learned of the bazooka in Tunisia, 1943, via captured units. By February 1944, the Raketen Panzerschreck 54, or Panzerschreck, entered service. 88mm warhead, 160 to 230mm penetration. But its backblast required ponchos, gloves, and masks, weighing crews at 24 pounds. Smoke clouds betrayed positions. American bazooka teams, lighter at 13 pounds, moved faster, striking and vanishing. 300,000 Panzerschrecks were built, but the bazooka's agility prevailed. In 1985, at a European campaign reunion, a Panther commander told an American veteran, "We feared your rocket more than Sherman's. It came from nowhere, soldiers we couldn't see. We abandoned tanks just hearing that whoosh." The bazooka's psychological edge was profound. Tankers, once invincible, scanned shadows for infantry with tubes.
Production and global reach. From June 1942 to May 1945, American factories churned out 476,628 bazookas, M1, 112,790, M1A1, 59,932, M9, 26,087, M9A1, 277,819, M18, 500. General Electric produced 91.6%, Cheney-Bigelow Wire Works 40,000 M9A1s. Rocket production hit 15,603,000, including heat, practice, and smoke variants. Allies received thousands. Free French, 11,350, Soviets, 3,000, Brazil, 2,900, UK, 2,100, China, 2,000. French resistance fighters used them to ambush convoys, their simplicity ideal for partisans. Women on factory lines, part of the Rosie the Riveter workforce, ensured quality. Knowing brothers and husbands fought overseas, they kept rejection rates low despite rushed schedules. The bazooka's $50 cost and simple maintenance made it a soldier's tool, not a specialist's. The men behind the machine. Leslie Skinner, dying in 1978 at 78 in Clearwater, Florida, was lauded as the bazooka's co-inventor. Post-war, he organized ordnance in the Pacific, worked at Caltech, and retired as a colonel in 1948 with the Legion of Merit. Recalled for Korea, he built Eglin Air Force Base's test facility, later sculpting in Florida. His obituary hailed his transformative weapon. Edward Uhl, passing in 2010 at 92 in Oxford, Maryland, rose to lieutenant colonel by 1947, then led Fairchild Industries as chairman, overseeing missiles and satellites. Married to Barbara Kelleher in 1943, he fathered 4 children. In a 2007 Maryland Cracker Barrel interview, he said, "In 1941, we were inept. Necessity drove us to act fast." The broader impact. The bazooka reshaped warfare. Shaped charges revolutionized demolition, mining, and cutting. Rocket tech informed post-war missiles like the Matador and Pershing. Modern launchers, AT-4, RPG-7, Javelin, traced to that scrap tube. By Vietnam, the M72 LAW replaced the bazooka, but bazooka became generic for shoulder-fired rockets. Tactically, it forced combined arms doctrine. Tanks without infantry cover became vulnerable as bazooka teams struck from concealment. Corporal Donald Lewis, testing Panzerschrecks in 1944, preferred them for power but admired the bazooka's mobility. The fear it instilled, tankers abandoning undamaged panzers at the sound of a rocket, proved its greatest triumph. The human legacy. Soldiers didn't ponder history, they valued survival.
The bazooka gave them a chance against 60-ton Tigers, turning desperation into defiance. At Casino, a gunner blasted a bunker, saving his squad. On Omaha Beach, bazookas cleared strongpoints, letting engineers breach obstacles. In the Pacific, they cracked pillboxes, sparing Marines suicidal charges. The bazooka's true legacy wasn't kills or numbers, it was confidence. Infantry, once prey to armor, became predators. Uhl's scrap pile find, Skinner's vision, and factory workers' diligence armed soldiers with hope. From Maryland's dust to Europe's mud, the bazooka proved ingenuity under pressure could win wars. German tankers, haunted by its whoosh, admitted nothing scared them more.